Welcome to the Winbert Foundation Digital Inclusion Program. In this course, Project Management Foundations, Requirements Part 1, you will be introduced to one of the most critical aspects of project success: understanding and managing project requirements. Project requirements define what a project is expected to achieve and serve as the foundation for planning, execution, monitoring, and evaluation. Without clearly defined and well-managed requirements, projects are at risk of scope creep, stakeholder dissatisfaction, and failure to deliver value. Project Management Foundations, Requirements Part 1, focuses on building a strong conceptual understanding of requirements in project management. It explores the importance of requirements, the different types of requirements, and the key stakeholders involved in defining them. You will also begin to understand how to gather and document requirements effectively, ensuring alignment with project goals and stakeholder expectations. This course will set the stage for more advanced requirement management techniques covered in Part 2. By the end of this course, you will be able to define project requirements and explain their importance in project success. Identify and differentiate between various types of project requirements, e.g., business, stakeholder, functional, and non-functional requirements. Recognize key stakeholders involved in requirements definition and understand their roles. Explain the relationship between requirements, project scope, and project objectives. Describe common techniques used for gathering requirements, e.g., interviews, surveys, workshops, and observation. Understand the characteristics of high-quality requirements: clear, complete, consistent, and testable. Explain the concept of scope creep and how poor requirements management contributes to it. Demonstrate basic skills in documenting requirements in a structured and organized manner. Understand the importance of stakeholder engagement and communication during the requirements process. Prepare for more advanced topics in requirements analysis and validation in the next course I.E. Requirements Part 2. Module 1. What project requirements are and their importance in project success. Project requirements are the documented needs, expectations, and conditions that a project must meet to be considered successful. They describe what the project is supposed to deliver, who it is for, and the standards it must satisfy. In simple terms, requirements define the what of a project before the how is determined. They provide a clear direction for project teams and serve as a reference point throughout the project lifecycle. Project requirements can originate from different sources, including clients, end users, regulatory bodies, sponsors, and internal stakeholders. These requirements are typically categorized into different types, such as business requirements, high-level goals the project aims to achieve, stakeholder requirements, needs of those affected by the project, functional requirements, specific features or functions of the deliverable, and non-functional requirements, quality attributes such as performance, usability, and security. Understanding project requirements is essential because they form the foundation upon which all project activities are built. When requirements are clearly defined, the project team can develop accurate plans, allocate resources efficiently, estimate costs and timelines realistically, and deliver outputs that meet stakeholder expectations. On the other hand, poorly defined or misunderstood requirements often lead to confusion, rework, delays, budget overruns, and ultimately project failure. For example, consider a scenario where an ICT company is contracted to develop a mobile application for a retail business. If the client only states, "We want an app to sell our products," without providing detailed requirements, the development team may create an app that lacks critical features such as secure payment integration, inventory tracking, or user-friendly navigation. As a result, the client may reject the final product or request significant changes, leading to increased costs and wasted time. However, if detailed requirements were gathered at the beginning, such as payment methods, product categories, user interface expectations, and performance standards, the team would have a clear roadmap to follow, reducing the likelihood of errors and dissatisfaction. Another real-life scenario can be seen in construction projects. If a client requests the construction of a 750 SQM warehouse but fails to specify requirements such as storage capacity, ventilation, loading dock design, or safety standards, the completed structure may not meet operational needs. This could result in expensive modifications after construction or even safety risks. Proper requirement definition ensures that the final structure aligns with the intended use and complies with regulations. Project requirements also play a key role in managing stakeholder expectations. When stakeholders are involved in defining and reviewing requirements, they are more likely to feel satisfied with the project outcome. Additionally, requirements serve as a baseline for measuring project success. At the end of the project, the deliverables are evaluated against the documented requirements to determine whether the objectives have been achieved. In summary, project requirements are not just a formality but a critical success factor in project management. They provide clarity, guide decision-making, reduce risks, and ensure that the final deliverables create value for stakeholders. A project that begins with well-defined requirements is far more likely to succeed than one that does not. Module 2. Difference between various types of project requirements: business, stakeholder, functional, and non-functional requirements. In project management, understanding the different types of project requirements is essential for delivering outcomes that meet expectations and create value. While all requirements define what a project should achieve, they operate at different levels and serve distinct purposes. The 4 key types of requirements: business, stakeholder, functional, and non-functional work together to provide a complete picture of project needs. Business requirements are high-level statements that describe the overall goals and objectives of the project. They explain why the project is being undertaken and what value it is expected to deliver to the organization. These requirements are usually defined by senior management or project sponsors. For example, a business requirement for a retail company might be: increase online sales by 30% within 1 year. This requirement does not specify how the goal will be achieved but sets a clear direction for the project. Stakeholder requirements focus on the needs and expectations of individuals or groups who are directly or indirectly affected by the project. These stakeholders may include customers, employees, investors, or regulatory authorities. Stakeholder requirements translate business goals into more specific expectations. For instance, in the case of the retail company, customers may require an easy-to-use mobile app, while management may require real-time sales reports. Each stakeholder group has unique needs that must be captured and balanced. Functional requirements define the specific features, capabilities, and functions that the project deliverable must have. They describe what the system or product should do in order to meet business and stakeholder needs. Functional requirements are detailed and actionable, guiding the development or implementation process. For example, for the retail mobile app, functional requirements may include: the system must allow users to create accounts, the app must support online payments, and the system must generate order confirmations. These requirements provide clear instructions for developers and project teams. Non-functional requirements, on the other hand, describe the quality attributes and performance standards of the system. They define how the system should perform rather than what it should do. These requirements include aspects such as speed, security, usability, reliability, and scalability. For example, the retail app may require that the system must process transactions within 2 seconds, or the platform must support up to 10,000 concurrent users. Non-functional requirements are critical because they influence user satisfaction and system efficiency. To better understand the differences, consider a real-life scenario of a bank implementing an online banking platform. The business requirement may be to improve customer satisfaction and reduce in-branch transactions. Stakeholder requirements may include customers wanting 24/7 access to their accounts and staff needing a system that reduces manual workload. Functional requirements would specify features like fund transfers, account balance viewing, and bill payments. Non-functional requirements would ensure that the platform is secure, fast, and available at all times. Another example can be seen in an educational institution developing an e-learning platform. The business requirement could be to expand access to education. Stakeholder requirements might include students needing interactive content and lecturers requiring tools to upload materials. Functional requirements would include features like video streaming and assignment submission, while non-functional requirements would focus on system uptime, ease of use, and data protection. In conclusion, each type of requirement plays a unique role in shaping a project. Business requirements provide direction, stakeholder requirements capture expectations, functional requirements define system behavior, and non-functional requirements ensure quality. A successful project depends on the clear identification and alignment of all these requirement types. Module 3: Key stakeholders involved in requirements definition and their roles. Successful project delivery depends heavily on the accurate definition of requirements, and this process is driven by the active involvement of key stakeholders. Stakeholders are individuals, groups, or organizations that have an interest in the project or are affected by its outcomes. Each stakeholder plays a unique role in shaping project requirements, and understanding these roles helps ensure that requirements are complete, relevant, and aligned with project goals. One of the most important stakeholders in requirements definition is the project sponsor. The sponsor is typically a senior executive or decision-maker who provides overall direction and funding for the project. Their role is to define the high-level business requirements and ensure that the project aligns with organizational strategy. For example, in a company launching a new digital platform, the sponsor may define the primary objective as increasing customer engagement or expanding market reach. The sponsor also approves major decisions and ensures that the project remains focused on delivering business value. Another key stakeholder is the project manager. The project manager is responsible for coordinating the requirements process and ensuring that all stakeholder inputs are properly gathered, documented, and managed. They facilitate communication between stakeholders, resolve conflicts, and ensure that requirements are realistic within the constraints of time, cost, and resources. For instance, if different stakeholders have conflicting expectations, the project manager works to balance these needs and arrive at a practical solution. The business analyst plays a central role in requirements definition. They act as a bridge between stakeholders and the technical team by translating business needs into clear, detailed, and actionable requirements. Business analysts gather requirements through techniques such as interviews, workshops, and observations, and they ensure that requirements are well documented and understood. In an ICT training project, for example, a business analyst may gather input from trainers, students, and sponsors to define the features and structure of the training program. End users are also critical stakeholders because they are the ones who will ultimately interact with the project deliverables. Their feedback helps ensure that the final product meets practical needs and is user-friendly. For example, in the development of a mobile banking app, customers, end users, may request features such as easy navigation, quick login options, and secure transactions. Ignoring end-user input can lead to low adoption rates, even if the system is technically sound. Technical team members, including developers, engineers, and system architects, are responsible for assessing the feasibility of requirements and providing technical insights. They help determine whether proposed requirements can be implemented within the available resources and technology. For instance, a developer may advise that a requested feature is too complex or costly to implement within the project timeline, prompting a revision of the requirement. Regulatory bodies and compliance officers may also be involved, especially in industries such as finance, healthcare, and construction. Their role is to ensure that project requirements comply with legal and industry standards. For example, a fintech application in Nigeria must meet security and data protection regulations, and compliance stakeholders will ensure that these requirements are included from the beginning. A real-life scenario can be seen in a hospital implementing an electronic health record system. The sponsor defines the goal of improving patient care, doctors and nurses, end users, provide input on usability, IT professionals assess technical feasibility, and regulatory bodies ensure compliance with health data laws. Each stakeholder contributes to a comprehensive set of requirements that guide the project to success. In conclusion, effective requirements definition is a collaborative effort that involves multiple stakeholders, each with distinct roles. By engaging the right stakeholders and clearly defining their responsibilities, project teams can develop accurate and complete requirements that lead to successful project outcomes. Module 4: The relationship between requirements, project scope, and project objectives. In project management, requirements, project scope, and project objectives are closely interconnected elements that collectively define the direction and success of a project. Understanding how these three components relate to one another is essential for effective planning, execution, and control. When properly aligned, they ensure that a project delivers the intended value without unnecessary delays or deviations. Project objectives are the high-level goals that a project aims to achieve. They answer the question, what is the purpose of this project? Objectives are usually strategic and measurable, providing a clear sense of direction. For example, a project objective for an ICT training initiative might be to train 100 participants in digital skills and achieve at least 70% job placement within 6 months. Objectives set the foundation for decision-making and help stakeholders understand the desired outcomes. Project requirements, on the other hand, define the specific needs, features, and conditions that must be met to achieve these objectives. They translate the broad goals into actionable details. Requirements answer the question, what must be done to achieve the objectives? In the ICT training example, requirements may include developing a curriculum, providing laptops for participants, securing qualified instructors, and offering job placement support services. These requirements ensure that all necessary elements are in place to meet the stated objective. Project scope refers to the boundaries of the project. It defines what is included and what is excluded in the project work. Scope answers the question, what work will be done and what will not be done? It is derived directly from the project requirements and ensures that the project team stays focused on delivering the agreed outputs. A well-defined scope prevents unnecessary additions, scope creep, and helps manage time, cost, and resources effectively. The relationship between these three elements can be understood as a logical flow. Project objectives define the desired outcomes. Requirements specify what is needed to achieve those outcomes, and scope outlines the work required to fulfill the requirements. If any of these elements are unclear or misaligned, the project is likely to encounter challenges. Consider a real-life scenario involving the development of an e-commerce website for a retail business. The project objective may be to increase online sales by 40% within 1 year. Based on this objective, requirements are defined, such as enabling product listings, integrating secure payment systems, and providing a user-friendly interface. The project scope then outlines the specific tasks to be completed, such as designing the website, developing the back-end system, testing the platform, and launching the site. If the scope expands beyond these defined tasks, such as adding unrelated features like a social media platform, it could lead to delays and increased costs without contributing to the main objective. Another example can be seen in a construction project for a warehouse. The objective may be to build a 750 SQM warehouse to improve storage capacity. Requirements would include specifications such as structural design, ventilation, safety measures, and loading docks. The scope would define the construction activities, materials, and timeline. If the requirements are incomplete or the scope is poorly defined, the final structure may not meet operational needs, resulting in costly adjustments. It is important to note that changes in one element often affect the others. For instance, if project objectives are revised, requirements must be updated, and the scope may need to be adjusted accordingly. Similarly, unclear requirements can lead to an inaccurate scope, which may prevent the project from achieving its objectives. In conclusion, the relationship between requirements, project scope, and project objectives is fundamental to project success. Objectives provide direction, requirements offer detailed guidance, and scope defines the work boundaries. Ensuring alignment among these elements helps project teams deliver results efficiently, meet stakeholder expectations, and avoid common pitfalls such as scope creep and project failure. Module 5. Common techniques used for gathering requirements, e.g., interviews, surveys, workshops, and observation. Gathering requirements is a critical step in project management, as it ensures that the project team clearly understands what stakeholders need and expect. Using the right techniques to collect this information helps reduce ambiguity, prevent misunderstandings, and improve the overall quality of project deliverables. Among the most commonly used techniques are interviews, surveys, workshops, and observation. Each method has its strengths and is suitable for different project contexts. Interviews are one of the most direct and effective techniques for gathering requirements. They involve one-on-one or small group discussions with stakeholders to gain detailed insights into their needs, expectations, and challenges. Interviews can be structured with predefined questions, semi-structured, or unstructured, depending on the level of flexibility required. For example, in an ICT training project, a project manager may interview potential trainees to understand their current skill levels, preferred learning methods, and expectations from the program. This approach allows for in-depth responses and clarification of complex issues. However, interviews can be time-consuming, especially when dealing with a large number of stakeholders. Surveys or questionnaires are used to collect information from a larger group of stakeholders in a cost-effective and efficient manner. They consist of a set of standardized questions that respondents can answer quickly. Surveys are particularly useful when the project requires input from many people who may not be easily accessible for interviews. For instance, a university planning to develop an e-learning platform may distribute surveys to hundreds of students to gather feedback on preferred features, accessibility needs, and learning challenges. While surveys provide quantitative data and broad insights, they may lack the depth and detail that interviews offer. Workshops bring multiple stakeholders together in a collaborative setting to discuss, analyze, and define requirements. These sessions are often facilitated by a project manager or business analyst and encourage active participation, brainstorming, and consensus building. Workshops are especially valuable when there are diverse stakeholder groups with differing perspectives. For example, in the development of a mobile banking application, a workshop may include customers, developers, marketing staff, and compliance officers. Through guided discussions, participants can align their expectations and agree on key requirements. Workshops can significantly speed up the requirements gathering process, but they require careful planning and skilled facilitation to avoid conflicts or dominance by certain participants. Observation involves studying users in their natural work environment to understand how they perform tasks and interact with existing systems. This technique is particularly useful when stakeholders may find it difficult to articulate their needs or when actual behavior differs from stated preferences. For instance, in a hospital implementing a new patient management system, observing how nurses and doctors currently handle patient records can reveal inefficiencies and unmet needs that may not be captured through interviews or surveys. Observation provides valuable real-world insights, but can be time-intensive and may require permission and ethical considerations. In practice, project managers often use a combination of these techniques to gather comprehensive and accurate requirements. For example, a construction project may begin with interviews with the client, followed by surveys of end users, workshops with engineers and architects, and observation of site conditions. This multi-method approach ensures that different perspectives are captured and that requirements are both detailed and realistic. In conclusion, effective requirements gathering depends on selecting the right techniques based on the project's size, complexity, and stakeholder diversity. Interviews provide depth, surveys offer breadth, workshops encourage collaboration, and observation delivers real-world insights. By applying these techniques appropriately, project teams can develop a clear and complete understanding of requirements, setting the stage for successful project execution. Module 6. Characteristics of high-quality requirements. Clear, complete, consistent, and testable. High-quality requirements are essential for successful project delivery because they guide planning, design, implementation, and evaluation. When requirements are poorly written, projects often suffer from confusion, rework, delays, and budget overruns. To ensure effectiveness, requirements must meet certain quality standards. The most important characteristics of high-quality requirements are that they are clear, complete, consistent, and testable. Clear requirements are easy to understand, unambiguous, and written in simple language that all stakeholders can interpret in the same way. A clear requirement avoids vague words such as fast, user-friendly, or adequate without proper definition. For example, instead of saying, "The system should load quickly," a clear requirement would state, "The The system should load the home page within 3 seconds under normal network conditions. Clarity ensures that developers, stakeholders, and testers all have the same understanding of what is expected, reducing the risk of misinterpretation. Complete requirements include all necessary details needed to fully describe what must be delivered. A requirement is incomplete when it leaves out critical information that could affect implementation. For example, if a requirement states, "The system should allow users to make payments," it is incomplete because it does not specify payment methods, security standards, or confirmation processes. A complete version would specify, "The system should allow users to make payments using debit cards, credit cards, and mobile money, and must send an email confirmation within 1 minute of successful payment." Completeness ensures that the project team has enough information to deliver without needing constant clarification. Consistent requirements do not conflict with one another and align with the overall project objectives and other requirements. Inconsistencies often arise when multiple stakeholders provide input without proper coordination. For example, one requirement may state that the system should allow unlimited file uploads, while another states that each user is limited to 10 file uploads per day. These two requirements are inconsistent and must be resolved. Consistency ensures that requirements work together logically and do not create confusion or contradictions during development. Testable requirements are written in a way that allows them to be verified through inspection, testing, or measurement. If a requirement cannot be tested, it becomes difficult to determine whether it has been successfully implemented. For example, a requirement that says the website should be secure is not testable because it is too vague. A testable version would be, "The website must use SSL encryption and require two-factor authentication for all user logins." Testable requirements allow quality assurance teams to confirm whether the system meets expectations. To illustrate these characteristics, consider a real-life scenario involving the development of an online learning platform for a university. A clear requirement would specify that students must be able to log in using their student ID and password. A complete requirement would also include password recovery options and multi-device access. A consistent requirement would ensure that login rules do not conflict with security policies or user access levels. A testable requirement would allow the system to be evaluated by verifying whether login functionality works correctly under different conditions. Another example is a mobile banking application. A clear requirement might state transaction processing time. A complete requirement would include all supported transaction types. A consistent requirement would align withdrawal limits across all banking functions. And a testable requirement would allow auditors to confirm encryption standards and transaction speeds. In conclusion, high-quality requirements are the foundation of successful project execution. Clear requirements eliminate confusion. Complete requirements ensure nothing is missing. Consistent requirements prevent contradictions. And testable requirements allow verification. When these 4 characteristics are applied properly, projects are more likely to meet stakeholder expectations and achieve their intended objectives. Module 7, the concept of scope creep and how poor requirements management contributes to it. Scope creep is one of the most common challenges in project management and a major reason why projects exceed their budget, timeline, or original objectives. It refers to the uncontrolled or continuous expansion of a project's scope without proper approval, documentation, or adjustment of resources. In simple terms, scope creep happens when additional features, tasks, or requirements are added to a project after it has already begun, without formally updating the project plan. At the heart of scope creep is poor requirements management. When project requirements are not clearly defined, well documented, or properly controlled, it becomes easy for stakeholders to introduce new demands during the project lifecycle. These changes may seem small individually, but over time they accumulate and significantly affect project performance. One major cause of scope creep is unclear or incomplete requirements. When requirements are not properly defined at the beginning, stakeholders continue to refine or change their expectations during execution. For example, in a mobile app development project, if the initial requirement simply states develop a food delivery app, the client may later request additional features such as live tracking, multiple payment gateways, referral bonuses, and in-app chat. Because these features were not clearly defined earlier, the project team may struggle to manage expectations, leading to delays and increased costs. Another cause is lack of formal change control processes. In well-managed projects, any change to requirements must go through a structured approval process. However, in poorly managed projects, stakeholders may directly request changes from developers or team members without assessing the impact. For instance, in a website redesign project for a company, a manager might casually request just add a blog section or change the homepage layout again, without considering the additional time and cost implications. These informal changes gradually expand the project scope beyond its original boundaries. Poor stakeholder communication and engagement also contributes to scope creep. When stakeholders are not properly involved during the requirements gathering stage, they may only realize missing features later in the project. This often leads to mid-project requests for additions. For example, in a hospital management system project, if nurses and administrative staff were not adequately consulted early on, they may later request features such as shift scheduling or patient alert systems, which were not included in the initial scope. A real-life scenario can be seen in a construction project. Suppose a client hires a contractor to build a 3-bedroom house. The original requirements include basic architectural design, plumbing, and electrical installation. However, as construction progresses, the client requests a swimming pool, a home office, and a larger kitchen. If these additions are not formally evaluated and approved, the project experiences delays, cost overruns, and possible disputes between the client and contractor. Scope creep is dangerous because it often goes unnoticed until it has already impacted the project significantly. It leads to increased workload, stretched resources, missed deadlines, and reduced quality of deliverables. It can also cause team frustration and stakeholder dissatisfaction when expectations are no longer aligned with reality. To prevent scope creep, strong requirements management practices must be implemented. These include clearly defining requirements at the start of the project, involving all key stakeholders early, documenting all requirements properly, and using a formal change control process for any modifications. Additionally, project managers must ensure continuous communication and monitor scope boundaries throughout the project lifecycle. In conclusion, scope creep is a direct result of weak requirements management and lack of control over project changes. While changes are sometimes necessary, they must be properly evaluated, documented, and approved. By maintaining strong discipline in requirements definition and change management, project managers can ensure that projects remain on track, within budget, and aligned with original OB objectives. Module 8. Basic skills needed in documenting requirements in a structured and organized manner. Documenting requirements is a critical skill in project management because it ensures that all stakeholder needs are clearly captured, organized, and communicated in a way that guides project execution. Poor documentation often leads to misunderstandings, rework, delays, and scope creep. Therefore, project managers and business analysts must develop strong skills in structuring and organizing requirements effectively. One of the most important skills in requirement documentation is clarity in writing. Requirements must be written in simple, precise, and unambiguous language that can be understood by all stakeholders, including technical and non-technical team members. For example, instead of writing "the system should be fast," a well-documented requirement would state, "The system should load the dashboard within 3 seconds under normal network conditions." Clear writing eliminates confusion and ensures everyone shares the same understanding. Another essential skill is logical organization of requirements. Requirements should be grouped into categories such as business requirements, stakeholder requirements, functional requirements, and non-functional requirements. This makes it easier to track, manage, and validate them throughout the project lifecycle. For instance, in an ICT training project, all requirements related to training content can be grouped separately from those related to infrastructure, such as internet access and computers. This structured approach improves readability and ensures no requirement is overlooked. Use of standard templates and documentation tools is also very important. Most organizations use requirement specification documents, such as Software Requirement Specifications or SRS, or project requirement forms to maintain consistency. These templates ensure that every requirement includes necessary details such as description, priority, acceptance criteria, and source. For example, in a mobile banking project, a requirement template may include fields like user login functionality, description, users must log in using username and password, and acceptance criteria, login must authenticate within 2 seconds. Another key skill is prioritization of requirements. Not all requirements carry the same level of importance. Some are critical for project success, must have, while others are optional or enhancement features, nice to have. Prioritizing helps project teams focus on delivering high-value features first. For example, in an e-commerce website project, secure payment functionality would be a high-priority requirement, while adding a product recommendation engine might be a lower priority. Traceability is also a vital documentation skill. This means ensuring that each requirement can be traced back to its source, such as a stakeholder or business objective, and forward to its implementation and testing. Traceability helps ensure accountability and makes it easier to manage changes. For instance, if a requirement in a hospital system states that patient records must be accessible within 2 seconds, it should be traceable back to the doctor's need for quick access and forward to system performance testing. A real-life example can be seen in the development of a university learning management system. If requirements are poorly documented, developers may misinterpret instructions, leading to features that do not meet academic needs. However, when requirements are clearly written, well-organized, and prioritized, the system is more likely to support activities such as course registration, assignment submission, and grading efficiently. Another scenario is in construction projects. If building requirements such as room dimensions, electrical layouts, and ventilation systems are not properly documented, it can lead to costly rework during construction. Structured documentation ensures contractors follow precise specifications, reducing errors and ensuring compliance with standards. In conclusion, documenting requirements in a structured and organized manner requires clarity in writing, logical grouping, proper use of templates, prioritization, and traceability. These skills ensure that requirements are easy to understand, manage, and implement. When applied effectively, they improve communication, reduce errors, and significantly increase the likelihood of project success. Module 9. The importance of stakeholder engagement and communication during the requirements process. Stakeholder engagement and communication are critical components of the requirements process in project management. They ensure that all individuals or groups affected by a project are actively involved in defining, refining, and validating requirements. Without effective engagement and communication, projects risk misunderstanding needs, delivering irrelevant solutions, and experiencing resistance during implementation. Stakeholder engagement refers to the process of identifying, involving, and collaborating with stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle. In the requirements phase, it ensures that the voices of all relevant parties, such as sponsors, end users, technical teams, and regulators, are considered. Each stakeholder contributes unique insights that help shape accurate and complete requirements. For example, in the development of a mobile banking application, customers provide input on usability, bank managers define business goals, and IT teams ensure technical feasibility. Communication, on the other hand, is the process of exchanging information clearly and consistently among stakeholders. It involves sharing requirements, clarifying expectations, resolving misunderstandings, and providing updates. Effective communication ensures that everyone has a shared understanding of what the project aims to achieve and what is required to get there. One major importance of stakeholder engagement is that it improves the accuracy of requirements. When stakeholders are actively involved, their needs are properly captured and validated. For example, in a hospital management system project involving doctors, nurses, and administrative staff ensures that all user needs, such as patient record access, appointment scheduling, and billing, are accurately documented. Without their input, the system may fail to support critical hospital operations. Another importance is that it reduces misunderstandings and conflicts. Poor communication often leads to different interpretations of requirements, which can cause disputes later in the project. For instance, in a construction project for a residential building, if the architect, contractor, and client do not communicate effectively, the final structure may not meet expectations regarding room size, design, or materials. Regular meetings and clear documentation help prevent such issues. Stakeholder engagement also increases buy-in and acceptance of project outcomes. When stakeholders are involved in defining requirements, they feel a sense of ownership and are more likely to support the project. For example, in an e-learning platform development project, if lecturers contribute to defining features such as assignment submission and grading systems, they are more likely to adopt and promote the platform once it is launched. Additionally, effective communication helps manage expectations. Stakeholders often have different priorities, and it is important to align them with what is realistically achievable. A project manager plays a key role in communicating limitations such as budget, time, and technical constraints. For example, in a government ICT training project, stakeholders may request advanced AI tools, but the project manager must clearly explain if the budget only allows for basic training modules. Real-life scenarios further highlight the importance of engagement and communication. In a software development project for a retail company, lack of stakeholder engagement may result in an application that does not include essential features like inventory tracking or discount management. However, when stakeholders are actively involved through workshops, interviews, and regular feedback sessions, the final product is more likely to meet business needs and customer expectations. Another example is in infrastructure projects. If local community members are not engaged during the planning of a road construction project, issues such as poor road access or environmental concerns may arise after completion, leading to dissatisfaction and protests. Early and continuous communication helps identify and address such concerns before implementation. In conclusion, stakeholder engagement and communication are essential for gathering accurate requirements and ensuring project success. Engagement ensures that all relevant perspectives are considered, while communication guarantees clarity and alignment throughout the process. Together, they help reduce risks, improve collaboration, and increase the likelihood of delivering a successful project that meets stakeholder expectations. We have now come to the end of this course. Thank you